you ever stepped back and asked, what am I actually doing for my health? Is it enough? Am I focused on the right things? And where am I trying to do this alone when I might need help? That's what this two-part series is about. I'll use my own life as the case study, not so you can copy me, but so you can think more clearly about your own path. Hi, I'm Dr. Bobby Du Bois, and welcome to Live Long and Well, a podcast about what the evidence can and can't tell us about living healthier lives. As a physician, scientist, Ironman triathlete, and author of several hundred scientific papers, I read the studies so you don't have to, helping you cut through the hype, focus on what actually works, and make better choices for your health. Welcome back to Live Long and Well. And today's episode, the health plan I actually follow and why. I'm turning 70 in July. That number feels different. Not bad, not a tragedy for me, but different. It feels like a threshold. So I've been thinking, what am I doing to preserve the life I want? What am I not doing? What do I worry about? And what have I decided just to let go? Maybe you've had a moment like that too. A birthday, a health scare, or just a quiet thought that you want to be more intentional about how you're living. That's what led me to these two episodes. The first, or today's episode, is called The Health Plan I Actually Follow and Why. It's about what I do in my own life, how I decide what makes it into my plan, and how the evidence shapes those choices. Second episode is called The Health Worries I Actually Take Seriously and Why. That one is about how I decide what deserves my attention, what I respect enough to act on, and perhaps most importantly, what I don't worry about. So today we'll start with my plan. Not because my plan should be your plan. It shouldn't. I have my own genetics, preferences, risks, and limitations. And you have yours. But I hope there's value for you to hear how I've approached things. So let's begin. After 2 years of podcast episodes, hard to believe I'm actually at 2 years, but go figure. But after all of that time looking at evidence for what does and doesn't work, I've come to think about my health plan and my approach in three broad categories. 1, what I can influence directly. 2, where I need support from others. And 3, where medication is the right approach for me. These categories apply to most of us, but the mix will clearly differ. Some people may need more focus on daily habits. Some may need more support from others. And some may need more medication or medical care. So today, I'll share what actually makes it into my plan and why. I also want to remind you, if you haven't done so already, please sign up for my newsletter, which I send out summarizing the key stuff from each episode. And of course, it's all free. And I'm now putting together one-page action steps that might help you in very practical ways. So I will summarize today's in a one-pager. Sometimes I'll have a little checkbox. Sometimes there'll be a little calendar of what to do. There may be links out to the studies. I really hope these are helpful to you. And as always, please let me know. So just click on the sign up link in the show notes. Or just go to drbobbyevidence.com. drbobbyevidence.com to sign up. Okay, back to today's topic and what the evidence has convinced me to do. Well, let's start, of course, with the first category, what I can influence directly. I can do these by myself, and I don't need medication. So the first big area for me is aerobic exercise. This is a pretty easy one for me. I enjoy it. I like endurance training. I like being outside. I like feeling that my body can still do something challenging. I'm turning 70, as I said, and I'm going to do a long run and then jump into a lake. That seems like a fun thing to challenge myself. Okay, in this area, aerobic exercise, I don't need extra discipline here. Aerobic exercise fits my life because I enjoy it. And the evidence really, really supports it. So that's great. Evidence lowers our risk of heart disease, overall mortality, and keeps us being able to do what we love to do as we age. Lots of detail about the evidence in my earlier episodes. Sleep. Sleep is different. Unlike exercise, which just naturally and easily fits into my daily routine, sleep takes active decision-making for me. Here's why. Socrates said, know thyself. Or, in my case, know thy sleep. Well, I pretty much wake up around 5 in the morning every day. Every day. Doesn't matter when I go to bed. It would be super, super nice if my brain said, well, Bobby stayed up late last night. Let's give him an extra hour of sleep. Nope. I'll still wake up at 5. I wish it were different, but that's how I'm made or how I've become. So if I want enough sleep for me, which is 7.5 to 8 hours, I can't pretend the morning will rescue me. It won't. So to get my full amount of sleep, I have to actively, rigorously, zealously, or whatever adjective you want, protect my bedtime. That means making nightly choices. To end my evening, stop what I'm doing, or drive home from a party or a dinner out to get myself to bed around 9. That's where the evidence and real life meet. The evidence tells me sleep matters, and for me, that's 7 to 8 hours. And if I don't make a deliberate choice every night, I'll pay for it the next day. So sleep makes it into my plan. Not as something that naturally happens, but as a real decision I have to make every evening. But it's a decision I'm happy to make. Okay, alcohol is another conscious choice. I like wine, and I really enjoy whiskey, and you may as well. But I've learned that alcohol messes with my sleep and how I feel the next day. The evidence is pretty convincing. So it isn't just personal evidence, personal experience. And then there's the evidence about alcohol and dementia. So since sleep is key and avoiding dementia is pretty much at the top of my list, I had to think a lot about where alcohol fits or doesn't fit into my health plan. I netted out, and this is just me, that alcohol once or twice a week works, but more isn't so good. And during weeks when I don't drink at all, yeah, I sleep better and I feel more energetic in the morning. Next, food, weight, and protein are also pretty straightforward for me. I'm not a nutrition crazy person. I don't spend my life chasing the perfect diet. try to maintain a healthy weight, get enough protein, and eat a pretty balanced diet. For me, I just need to pay attention. If I eat too much for a few days, which I frankly have done the last couple of days, I got on the scale this morning and was like, oh, I gained a couple of pounds. So if I do that for a few days, I back off. And I notice sometimes that I'm not getting enough protein. I'm just enjoying my carbs, my pasta, my breakfast yummies. So if I'm not getting enough protein, I adjust. It's not complicated, but it does require real honesty. We're back to Socrates and know thyself. It's easy. It's easy for me to tell myself a story. I'm eating pretty well. This is just temporary. I'll get back on track later. Now, sometimes that's true. Sometimes it isn't. On to the next one. At this stage of life, avoiding injury also makes it into my plan. And that takes conscious choices too. When you're younger, we can sometimes get away, and I did, with pushing through everything. A nagging ache or pain, a sprained ankle, had plenty of those and continue to run on those. Or a tweaked back, had that and still have that periodically. Now, maybe we shouldn't continue to do what we do, but back then I could. But as you get older, and older probably means over 40, a significant injury can stop your exercise routine dead in its tracks. And that means you're going to lose fitness and strength, which gets harder and harder to regain. So I try to be smarter. I think about recovery. I think about strength training. I think about not letting ego push me towards an accident. The goal is not to prove I can still suffer. The goal is to stay in the game. And then there's one more area that I can directly influence. Not surprisingly, I'm sure you're not going to be surprised about this one. I do N-of-1 testing. Now, I don't mean in a fancy way all the time. Sometimes I just mean I try things and I watch what happens and learn from my own experience. Now, I've shared this example before, but it's good. Magnesium for muscle cramps. Now, the evidence isn't perfect about whether it actually works. But in my own life, using an N-of-1 approach, in the summer heat, when I do my outdoor training and I sweat and I'm working on the ranch, I found it's useful enough to keep doing. Okay, so that's the first category in my health plan, what I can influence directly. I believe that the evidence supports my choices, and I try to stick to them. Now, this is the most important part, and I'll do this over and over again throughout today. Let me turn it back to you. What can you influence directly? What parts of your health plan come naturally to you? What parts require a real decision? And where do you need to pay closer attention? And might there be an N-of-1 experiment that could help you learn what actually works for you? The goal isn't to build the perfect plan. It's to build one that's doable and hopefully evidence-informed. Okay, end of the first category. Now the second category, or where I need help from others. There are things that are important, but I can't seem to get them done by myself. This is a category that's a bit humbling or embarrassing, because I realize that knowing what matters, and I'm pretty good at figuring out what actually does matter, that's not the same as me actually doing it. I've spent my life reviewing evidence. I understand studies. I know why strength training, emotional health, and relationships matter. And still, in my life, evidence is often not enough. Sometimes there's a missing ingredient. I need support or accountability to make it happen. And that often means I need help from others. Strength training is a great example. As I said, aerobic exercise comes naturally to me. Strength training doesn't. Look, I know I should do it. It helps me with doing stuff on the ranch, improves my balance, and lowers my risk of hurting myself. But knowing that wasn't enough to actually get me to do it. So to solve this problem, to solve the problem, I began working with a trainer. Now, that doesn't mean everyone needs a trainer. But for me, that support or guidance or accountability made the difference and got me to do what I hate doing twice a week. Nina arrives at my front door, and I can't really send her away. And it also helps. I already paid her up front, so I guess I better do the work. Problem solved. Like strength training, sometimes the best or most realistic move isn't to demand more discipline from yourself. It's to build the support that makes what you want to happen more likely. Now, this approach applies to emotional health too. I talked before about EMDR and how it helped me with the fear pattern around exercise. Look, I tried solving this in using category 1 by myself. And I tried this for decades with meditation and reflection. Didn't work. It was clear I needed help. Or category 2, if I was going to make any progress. And I'm really happy that I got that help. The EMDR has pretty much solved the problem. Now your turn. Where do you need support from others? Is there an area where you already know what matters, but you're not getting where you want to on your own? Let me know. Reach out to me, either through the website or directly through the show notes. I'd like to hear where you need help. Yeah, maybe there's some stuff I can suggest. Who knows? Remember, getting support isn't weakness. Often it's the bridge between knowing and doing. All right, on to the third category, where medication or surgery may be the right tool. This matters. This matters because in some wellness circles, and this hurts me deeply, worries me deeply, angers me deeply. In those circles, medication is often treated like a failure, as if the goal is to live so perfectly that you never need a prescription. I don't see it that way. Medication can be one of the most appropriate evidence-based tools we have. And as an internist, that's the key way I actually help folks. Sometimes medications are about risk factors, blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar. Guess what? I have all 3 problems, and I take medications for all 3. Sometimes medications are about treating an illness, rheumatoid arthritis, asthma, inflammatory bowel disease, cancer, or pain. Fortunately, I don't have those, but you might. As I shared in the episode on biology versus understanding, I've taken Wellbutrin for decades. It cured my dysthymia or low-level depression. The point is not that medication is always needed. Of course it's not. The point is that needing medication is not a failure. I worry when the message we hear becomes, if you do lifestyle correctly, optimize your microbiome, reduce inflammation, manage stress, and take the right supplements, you won't need medication. Okay, that may be true for some people. It hasn't been true for me, and it isn't likely true for many of you. And now, your turn. Where might medication be the right tool for you, and where have you been avoiding it? The question isn't, am I good enough to avoid medication? The better question is, what problem am I trying to solve? What are my options? What are the benefits and harms? And what does the evidence suggest for someone like me? And medication may be the answer. So, what makes it into my health plan? Not everything. Not every study, not every trend, not every supplement, not every protocol. Just the things that, as best as I can tell, are most likely to help me. And for me, the plan falls into those three categories. First, what I can influence directly. Aerobic exercise, which I enjoy, sleep, which requires a deliberate evening decision, and alcohol, where I ask, what's it give me? What does it take away? Avoiding injury because staying in the game matters, and N of 1 testing because my own experience helps personalize the plan. Second category, where I need real help from others, or it isn't going to happen, like a trainer for strength. And the third category, where medication is the right approach. And for me that includes blood pressure medication, statin, metformin, and Wellbutrin. For someone else, it might be something completely different. The broader point is that medication is not a failure, as I've said. It's one possible tool in an evidence-informed plan. That's my mix. Not the right mix for everyone, just my mix. But this was never really about my mix. It was about helping you think about yours. So I'll leave you with 3 questions. What can you influence directly? Where do you need support from others? And where might medication be the right tool? Next time, we'll take this one step further. The episode is called The Health Worries I Actually Take Seriously and Why. Because the evidence hasn't just changed what I do, it's also changed what I worry about. And maybe just as importantly, what I've learned to let go. We'll talk about it next time. Thanks so much for listening to Live Long and Well with Dr. Bobby. If you like this episode, please provide a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen. If you want to continue this journey or want to receive my newsletter on practical and scientific ways to improve your health and longevity, please visit me at drbobbylivellongandwell.com. That's doctor as in DR, Bobby, livelongandwell.com.